from the head of the church. If a pastor of a church cannot be vulnerable enough and say and be open enough to the point whereby they also share their struggles, there is no way that a member can feel comfortable.
Okay, yeah,
because if
there might be people in the church that have the mindset of, you have a small injury on your leg, you're going for surgery, can't you pray it out?
That's true.
Yeah.
The biggest issue, this is the excuse that people often say, I tell someone this, I tell person A this, maybe I tell you something like this, and then 2 days later I heard it from AY, and then I asked AY, where did you hear this from? And then he said it was from person D, not even from you. so that is the problem. A lot of us still find it difficult to even maybe tell our pastors, or people in our cell group, or people in our fellowship that, I was actually in the hospital, I was admitted, last week or 2 weeks ago.
Information may not be well managed. Maybe that's why the disappointment comes in when you share information among the wrong structure, among the wrong people in the structure. Let me put it like that.
So
I called this person, It's not that I wanted to actually have a conversation. I just called them just to say that I called you. I called you, right? So you can't say I didn't call you. That's virtue signaling. Come on, be authentic, be genuine.
So go to the 500.
Wait, are you saying that people will lose faith, or you will not have faith if you tell
people? There are people in that 500 that will lose faith.
I'm not sure why we should even care about that.
I don't know. Remember, Paul said, there are people who are sick.
Yeah.
They will not take paracetamol. They will say, I will pray it out.
I've seen that.
Do you think that's wrong?
What?
You have an headache and you don't take paracetamol. Do you think it's wrong?
I do both. I'll tell you the truth. Everybody can hear me.
Yeah.
I wouldn't tell people.
Yeah.
And I don't like the fact that I wouldn't tell people.
Yeah.
If I lost my job today,
Yeah.
and somebody asked me how's everything going, I would not tell them I lost my job. And I would be open about it.
Yeah.
The reason is fear.
Hi guys. Hi everyone. Welcome to this episode. This episode we're going to be talking about, why do we keep secrets in church? Sharing our struggles is part of building, a strong Christian community. Yet, many of us hold back. We fear judgment, we fear sabotage, sometimes gossips. We'll be going through why secrecy has actually become so ingrained, in our church community. And we are going to also discuss, why do we need to foster openness, and, be open more, in church. But some might think this is a problem, some might not think it's a problem. So, we're going to, be, discuss through this. Again, this is not a scripted conversation. This is, we're just telling you what we have in mind. And it's not that we have done like 2 hours, periodically recording conversations. So you'll be,
genuine.
A lot of them, they'll be hearing,
First-time information.
Yeah, first-time information. So let's start with AY. Do you think we keep secrets in church?
Yeah, and personally, I think yes, you keep secret in church. But for every cadre of things that happen in the church, personal, organizational wise, and all that bit, yeah. So I know we keep secret in church.
Yeah. What about you, Olaide?
Definitely. This is actually one of my biggest issues within many churches. My wife, she knows that anytime I talk about what can we improve in church, I always say that this is the number one issue, like our ability to converse and be open with each other, And if you don't mind me saying, like, it's one of the comparisons that I've always done with migrant churches versus domestic Australian native churches, having been somebody that's been to both type of churches, it's a completely different way of thinking paradigm. So yeah, I definitely think that many of our churches, we do tend to keep secrets. We tend to keep things in within ourselves, and we don't feel like we can open up to each other, and even more than that. So
Yeah, it's interesting. We could say that, is that not one of the things that keep us as humans? That we have boundaries, and there are certain things that we feel like, it's meant to be for me and my family, and certain things that it's meant to be maybe for, for sharing purpose. Is it not kind of like a instinctive, like something that we just do naturally? You know, that's why I'm saying what's wrong in actually, keeping secrets. It might be for your own good. In what areas is it actually going to be an issue? Us keeping secrets, especially in a Christian community.
I think if it hinders your growth in your Christian walk
Yeah.
with God, if it hinders your relationship with others, if the secret you're keeping is something that will debar you from moving forward with those two things, especially, I think then secret is of an adverse effect. Keeping secret will have an adverse effect on you. It's better to open up in those type of situations.
And in what situations is it okay to actually hold back and keep certain things to yourself?
I think, so again, we're all going to share different
Yeah,
views.
yeah.
I have a very, people would naturally say it's extreme. I don't think it's extreme.
Yeah.
But I think that we should only keep secrets. In fact, I wouldn't characterize this as even a secret. I would say we should keep things personal when they have no effect on anybody else. It's not detrimental to anybody else. And it's maybe for a good reason. Not that you're hiding something from somebody, but you have an intentional reason. Like even the simplest thing can be like if you want to set up a birthday surprise. Of course, you don't have to always get to tell somebody. But I think I'm sure we'll delve deeper into this. But there aren't many things that we should actually be keeping away from each other, especially if we can edify, help each other. And I think the simple fact is that as Christians, we just prefer to lie. That's the fact. Christians like lying. I know what I'm saying. I'm not saying that we like lying as in extreme liars, pathological liars that like to lie. No, we are called to tell the truth and we follow the truth. But let me joke around for a bit. Anytime that my mom is not gonna like this, but anytime my mom is on the phone, I'm on the phone and my mom asks me that, hey, or somebody's on the phone and say, is your mom around? And my mom would look at me. No.
What do you say? My mom said I should say no.
Maybe in the younger days, how kids can say that. But my mom, she'd be like, just and I said, oh, sorry, my mom is down here. But those things are like simple lies. Very simple, but they're lies. And some people, we can even trick ourselves and say that if I don't tell you the truth, then I've not lied to you. I believe that, yes. I don't think that we should obscure the truth, no matter how painful it is. I mean, there are certain truths that should not be told, especially if it endangers somebody's life. Somebody wanting to commit, I won't say it because I know YouTube likes to cancel it, but the S word. So that's probably the better time not to say anything. But I think there aren't many reasons why we shouldn't be open with each other, unless it's actually just privately for yourself.
All right, so the biggest issue, this is the excuse that people often say. I tell someone this, I tell person A this, maybe I tell you something like that, and then 2 days later I heard it from AY, and then I asked AY, where did you hear this from? And then he said it was from person D, not even from you. So that is the problem. So when he's saying person D, you start wondering, does person E know or F? So I think that's the biggest issue we have in terms of gossip, right? Information go fast, quick. So for example, I was sick. I wasn't sick, but an example, if I was sick, last week and this week I was not able to come to church. Even something that I think is that basic, I don't think there's any danger that can result, from people knowing that you are sick, right? But a lot of us still find it difficult to even maybe tell our pastors, or people in our cell group or people in our fellowship that, oh, I was actually in the hospital, I was admitted, last week or 2 weeks ago, or I was, not something like that. Why do you think, we we struggle with that.
Well, look, I think it's a good. First of all, thankfully, we're all very diverse. Because
Yeah,
I can say
yeah,
that
yeah.
I've lived in Australia the
Yeah,
longest.
yeah.
You're probably the medium. You're more recent, I think. Or would you say you're recent? You've actually been here
Recent. I probably have been.
Yeah.
More than me.
No, so we have different. So we can see the different angles.
Mm.
But for me, the question was actually just repeat the question again.
So for example, I'm just using an example of being sick. You were admitted,
Yes.
and you were not able to make it to church or during the week, and then this Sunday someone follow up and they're asking, "Oh, how are you, Bolide? Where have you been?" And you find it difficult to
share.
Why do we find it difficult in that moment?
Honestly, I
to
don't know.
share.
I don't know why. Like, I mean, I don't actually know why, which is why
Hey,
I have
hey, why?
an
What
issue
do
with
you
the
think?
problem.
Do
I
you-
don't know why.
Two things. Yeah. First is okay, the level of information, and then the other thing is maybe you've not built trust with
okay.
that other person that
person,
is asking.
yeah.
Another thing I see there's mindset also involved. Because some people believe, oh, I'm not supposed to share things that are personal to me with others.
Yeah.
First thing I want to establish is the church is a place for you to get help.
Yeah.
Help for spiritual growth.
Yeah.
If you're going to get help for spiritual growth, depending on what your need is on your spiritual journey, so it should determine how much you share, right? And how you share and who you share with. You have to first build trust with the person and then all that. So mindset is a thing. Some people have the mindset of, no matter how close we are, I'm not supposed to tell you my health thing. I'm not supposed to tell you certain things.
Yeah.
The mindset needs to, so first what I will enjoy is a growth of mindset, because I believe if I tell you that I am, the mindset also leads to fear of what you mentioned the other time, which is people hearing about it from other people and all that. If I tell you I am sick and I've got diabetes, then everybody in the church gets to know that I brought.
So what's wrong with that?
But then,
what's wrong with that? If everybody in church know that you are
if
diabetic?
your mindset
Honestly,
is, if everybody don't get, wait.
Okay.
If everybody in the church knows that, it depends. That's why I'm saying trust in the church also. If everybody in the church knows that brother A now has diabetes, we need to pray, and you've got to a point where you've seen it often that anytime there's a problem in the church or anything like that, the church pray about it.
Yeah. Is anything wrong with that?
Then maybe you'll be susceptible to telling the church or telling your brother. But if the case is that when you tell something like that, there's no prayer, not so many people get to come and check on you or ask you more about it and see how you're progressing. If the thing is now that everywhere you go, you now hear that A now has diabetes. So it's best you just like, okay, I'm not going to put myself out there, and then you chuck it in. Another thing I'm going to say is, tolerance is also there. Not everybody wants their matter to be out there. For some people, they want the matter to be out there for them to spark a conversation, have something more to talk about it, and see if they can get help here and there, get information. For some people, they rather keep it in, but what I have seen generally, just with a conclusion, is if you keep these things in, it's
There's no
detrimental
community.
to you.
Even the Bible says that share your burden with each other.
Yes, the Bible says so, but you have to be careful who you share it with.
When we look at Paul, in this podcast, we don't want to Bible bash too much, but occasionally we'll be referring to, what the Bible says. So when Paul, when he was writing, a letter to Timothy, he said, of that stomach ache that you have.
Yes.
Now, the whole world knows. and the future generation will know that Timothy had stomach problem. Okay.
But look at the relationship.
Paul was able to pray. I'm sure when Paul knows about that,
he prayed
would
for
have
him.
been able to pray for him.
He also mentioned
when
it
the
in the
church
Bible that
knows,
he prayed for him.
He would have been able to.
But what I'm saying is this: what is the relationship between Paul and Timothy? Timothy is Paul's protege.
Yes.
Okay. That's what I'm saying. Like, you could share. There's a relationship. There's trust. Timothy could share because that's my boss. And I can share with him because I trust him. If I tell him,
so
he's going to pray about it.
So do you think Timothy would have had an issue that Paul just writes it there in the letter for
But
everybody?
the letter was to Timothy now.
That's true. It was
The-
Timothy.
it was
So
to
that-
Timothy.
that-
The letter was not to
Okay.
the church that
Okay.
Timothy was pastoring.
Okay,
The
okay,
heck,
okay,
that's the
okay,
thing.
okay.
Information management
Yeah,
is
yeah.
also a thing.
Okay.
Like we have to be factual. That sometimes within our context,
Yeah, yeah.
the information is not well managed.
Okay, like
Yeah.
obviously, we can't just put everything out there.
Yes.
Even Jesus had, he had 12 disciples. From that 12, he has 3.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the 12, he even has more and then more.
More.
So what Jesus shared, with everyone
It's different from
is different from what he shared to
with
the
the
12,
three.
what he
Yeah.
shared with the 3. So but sometimes what I feel like we make mistake with is what is okay to be shared with 500, for example, we find it difficult to even share with the 12. Talk
Yes,
less of
that-
and
yeah,
everything.
yeah.
So I think that's the problem. What are some of the life circumstances that you think as Christian, it's okay for my church community to know? I'm going to put you on spot there.
No, it's fine. I don't mind answering
Yeah,
that
yeah.
question. It's just that my brother here just said some points.
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
going to
yeah.
even rebuttal
Okay.
to
Yeah. Go for it.
Bro, you can't drop 5 points. I will forget them. So you even have to just drop them one at
One
a
by
time.
one by one.
Or I'll have to go and get paper and pen now. Hey, I can't
Use
even
your
remember.
phone as notes.
That's what I'm gonna have to do soon
Yeah.
enough, because okay, if I can remember, I'll try
You
and
come back
to
to
them.
it, yeah.
Now I really need you to ask me the question again, because I was thinking about
What are
these
some
points.
of the things that we keep as people, for information where is only for, we think, we should keep for 312, but in an ideal situation, there's nothing wrong if 500 knows or if the church community knows.
I'm going to flip the question around.
Yeah, yeah.
What I'm going to say is that the question should be, what can I share with people? Because
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
once you know what you can share with people, then everything else that you don't share is fine.
But they are what you could share with everyone, for example, is different from what you'd be able to share with your pastor. So if you say
Okay.
people, that's making it too general.
Okay,
You know
so
what I
we're
mean?
specifically talking about-
like what are things, for example, there are things that will stay between you and your wife.
Yes.
Okay. I don't think the purpose of this podcast is saying that just put your life out there.
Yes,
Okay?
let me correct you.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I was even thinking about what I said earlier.
Yeah.
Whereas I technically said that as Christians, we sometimes like to lie.
Yeah.
Let me correct that. I do think as Christians, we actually like to tell small lies.
Yeah.
Like, it's not
White
not-
lies.
Yeah, I'm not talking about pathological lies. I'm
What is the
talking
difference?
about-
Lies is lies.
No, of course. Sin is sin. Murdering somebody and stealing
Eating
bottled
someone,
water,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
still a sin.
Yeah, but okay,
but
there's different
there are levels to
consequences.
some certain things. What I'm saying is that we're called to we follow somebody who says is the truth.
Yeah.
So how can somebody who says that following somebody is the truth even consider some white lies, unless it is actually detrimental to somebody's life? But let me come back to the question. You're saying, what can we tell people? What can we actually tell? Let me specify. Are we talking about general people, pastor, our wives? What level?
So now what I'm saying is,
I'm waiting.
yeah. So what I'm saying is that Jesus had 500,
Yes.
12, 3.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes what we should share with 500, we
Yes.
find it difficult to even share with 12 and 3.
Yes.
Okay. So what are some of the things in our lives, generic, that is okay for the church community to know?
Well, I think, first of all, I usually look at it in the paradigm of that if I tell my brethren this thing,
Yeah.
can they help me? Can they edify me? Can
Yeah.
they help to improve?
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, some of the I'm not calling it lies. I'm not
Yeah.
going to say that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say about hiding things. I'm not calling it lies.
Yeah.
Well, lies and hidden things. That a lot of the things are those people can help us with.
Yeah.
Like simple advice.
Yeah.
It's the fool that says that
I know
he
it
has
all. Yeah.
I know it all.
Yeah.
Or not even that I know it all. I don't know it all, and I'm still not willing to ask for help.
Yeah.
That is a fool.
Yeah.
Wise people are always seeking knowledge. And
Yeah.
I think that there's so much advice that the church can give. We have people who are older in the church who have built up experience
Yeah.
and knowledge.
And this is not
they're
even
waiting to
spiritual
give-
problem, isn't
it's
it?
Not even,
Yeah,
sometimes it's
yeah,
not spiritual.
yeah,
Sometimes
yeah,
it can even be financial.
Yeah, yeah.
It says that our people die for a lack of knowledge or
Yeah,
perish
yeah,
for a
yeah,
lack of
yeah,
knowledge.
yeah.
So those are the type of things. I'm also even thinking spiritual as well.
Yeah.
We were talking before. how can we hold things together when we're one body? The idea of one body is that if one part is wrong, everything is wrong. The idea is that if we're all functioning right, we'll all benefit from each other.
Yeah.
So if something is wrong with me, the other part of my body should be able to pray and help me heal.
Yeah.
You can't do that if you're not even willing to talk to people.
Yeah.
But you know what? You also mentioned that because people are afraid that people will spread it around. That's a two problem issue. There's the problem of, can you be open? And if you can do that, you've fulfilled your part. But then the second part is that, what is the church actually doing? What are the individual members of the church as a collective? What are they doing to uphold the necessary standards that allow people to believe that, yes, if I tell somebody this, I will actually be edified by it, I will benefit. And if the church, and I'm talking about collective and individual, are not doing that, then we start saying that it's not about the people themselves, it's the church.
Okay.
What is the church actually doing to say that, look, when you tell me something, I'm not going to tell everybody unless you want me to tell you, but I'm going to do everything in my power to help you with that. You know, you've told me, you've poured your burden on me, so how can I pray? And it's like, you can't pray for somebody who doesn't tell you anything.
But this is what I say. Okay, like, you know what I mentioned the other time is sometimes maybe people don't also know. The church is structured. It's structured. Then some people might just join the church, be in a Christian community. Every Christian community I know is a structured community. It means there's an head, there's somebody leading the states, the departments, and stuff like that.
But we the people are the church.
Yeah, I know, but it's a structured community. In a structured community, it means there will be structure for information management.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Are you mean like in an institutional sense, or are you mean like, I guess maybe you'd call it maybe in a spiritual or
for
like
everything,
hierarchical?
for everything in the church.
I think institutional, that makes sense, but like when it comes to like the business process and running the church, yes. But I think from a spiritual sense, like, you know, the only hierarchy I see are those who have been called to lead and those who have been called to follow. But beyond that, I don't really see a necessary need for that type of structure, you know?
No,
like, at the end of the day, if I want to go directly to God, I can go to God. The only reason that I may see structure is that I know somebody who is not a spiritual baby, but is spiritually matured, and I want to go through him because his prayer, they say the prayer of the righteous availeth much, so I can go through them. But other than that, I don't understand this hierarchy that most people, unless it's like, oh, we need to run finance, so there's a head of finance at the church, there's this, and then that makes sense to have a structure.
In information management, like he said, okay, say let's take Jesus, head of the church. He has 3, he has 12, it's 500. There are things he shared with 3, there are things he shared with 12, there are things he shared with 500, right? So that's information management. You're managing information, and it's basically, what I think is basically gauging the growth, spiritual growth and tolerance of everybody within that category like that. So you're able to manage the information between them. If I'm a person and something was to happen to me, I go according to the hierarchy also, because I expect that within the church, that structure should help manage information. Now, have we have situations where that structure has disappointed? Maybe yes, maybe no. Have we had, but what I want to put out
Like,
there,
you mean maybe information is given to the pastors and then not managed well? Is that what you're saying?
yeah, have we had situations where that things have happened? Yes, they are.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, first we need to recognize that, and the church is a structured thing, and then people can share. We're trying to say, why do people keep secret? First, people may not know that the church is structured like that. There are certain information you cannot share with your 500 and expect it to be within that one person that you shared it with in the 500. Because among the 500, the thinking will be that they may not be spiritually or matured enough to keep certain information within one person in the 500. Whereas if you share that same type of information with the person within the 3, it will stay, because that person has the maturity and the spiritual maturity and wherewithal to keep the information. Wait, let me learn. What I'm trying to say is this. We still there are 2 dimensions to this. There are people who just want to keep themselves aloof. They just want to keep to themselves. And that's not helping us as a group. That would, from my own perspective, it doesn't help you as a group. It doesn't help you grow. It doesn't help you. You need to be able to share for you to be able to grow with others. That's the first thing. Then the second part is when you are shared with, when you want to share, also understand that there's a structure for you to share if you want that information to be well managed. Now, if you're when you share appropriately, and there's now a disappointment in information management, there's also a way to manage that also. If you want us to get to that, I think we can talk about that. But we need to let people know that there's that way. For example, I'm celebrating my child's naming ceremony, and possibly during the period of pregnancy, we've been told that, say, you've been praying and the Holy Spirit has ministered to you to say, keep it calm, keep it calm, for one reason or the other. And you want to share, and you go and share it within the 500. You get what I mean by the 500 now? If that information may not be well managed here, if you share it among the three or you share it to the head, that information could be well managed, because at that point they are able to spiritually gauge why you are saying it needs to be calm. If you share it among the 500, there's everybody. Some people will not understand why you want to keep it calm. Some people may even question if God actually asked you to keep it calm. So your information may not be well managed. Maybe that's why the disappointment comes in, when you share information among the wrong structure, among the wrong people in the structure. Let me put it like that.
So I think I like where you're going and where you're coming from. One of the biggest reason I think is people have felt disappointed.
Yeah, I think it's because they have shared
gossip.
In the wrong.
Gossip. Prayer in more characteristics, more like gossip, has been used in the church.
I get what you are saying in terms of.
For me,
spiritually, there might be people in the 500 that are fervent that you feel you can bond with. But there's
then they should be in your 12. They should be in your 3.
Yeah. I'm saying you might meet somebody within the 500.
Yes.
If you are not discerning enough to know that this person is still within the 500, and you go and share significant information with the person, don't be surprised that later. That's where the disappointment. For me, that's why I think that's where the disappointment comes in, and the person shows you that I'm still part of the 500.
A litmus test that I usually do is when I'm talking to someone and I hear what they are sharing with me, that usually gives me the perception of what I can share with this person.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if I call person E now, okay, don't let us mention names unless it gets too personal. If I call person E now, and then he start telling me, how was the day, and then he start telling me the life of person D, person B, person A, person, and I'm starting to wonder some of these things that these people have told you, even though they might not be like secret, but like still, you are still so open to be sharing all of this. How can I be safe
to share with
that
you?
if I share something with you, that is not going to go to somewhere else?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a litmus test that you can do, and that's something that you can, sometimes when I'm sharing something that is really personal to people, like people that I trust, I tell you, this is between me and you. Because sometimes if you don't clarify that, they might easily, unknowingly, just share it with someone else. So it's always important to say, this person, and I was diagnosed with this last weekend, this is still between me and you. Or in fact, there might even be 3 of you or 4 of you, and you are sharing 1-to-1, you guys are close, you have not shared to the others. Okay. I will tell that one that I have not shared with this person yet. This is between me and you. So I think that's maybe something that can help us to manage that information well, rather than, making, because we do need to share,
Exactly.
We still haven't answered the question of what is fine for the whole congregation to know, and at what point is it fine for the whole congregation to know, compared to what is fine for 12 to know, for 3 to know.
Okay.
Look, I'm glad that you said that, because just returning back to your point, bro. Look, I think we're still talking about 2 different things, because when we talk about Jesus and information management across 3, 12, 500, Jesus is not there to ask himself, how can I hide things from people? He's telling himself that I want to tell people certain things, but I have to gauge their maturity. I have to gauge their understanding. Do they have the wisdom and knowledge? You know, it's like when he said that, look, I'm going to tell you certain things about the kingdom of God, and I'm going to say it in parables. Now, he can tell everybody, and only certain people will understand. So there are certain messages that are meant for certain people, but that's not what we're actually really talking about. What we're saying is that when there's the ability to share things with people, and there is no repercussions upon yourself, like, you know, you say that, oh, I hurt my knee and I had to get surgery. I want to actually let's bring
That
a scenario.
information you just had now for some people.
It's a problem.
No, but yeah, but so that's why I'm saying that the whole idea of how can I tell people, but choose the right people to tell. That's even a good thing, because it means that you're not hiding. You're actually just assessing who is appropriate to receive that information. So it's not really about hiding. It's actually just information management, which is fine. I have no problem. The problem is where it comes to like simple things I can't even tell people.
That's my problem.
I want to even bring a scenario. Let's play out a scenario. I'm in church. You come up to me and say, "Brother Ide, how are you doing?" And I say, "I'm all right. You know, everything going well? How's your week?" "My week is fine." Now, I just had surgery. Like, for some reason, they don't know. Well, of course, they don't know, but it's not obvious. But I just had surgery, and, like, I'm even finding it difficult to walk. They just not noticed, but I'm having difficulty to walk. Now, people will not tell people this kind of thing. Now, I want to ask you both. Can you think of any legitimate reason that's... In fact, just think of a legitimate reason why it may benefit you from not telling your brothers and sisters. I'm not even talking about telling people in the world. Like, if you look at the world, it's fine if you don't tell people in the world. But if you're talking about your brothers and sisters of Christ...
In fact, we feel more comfortable to tell people in the world,
you know what,
than to tell people in the church.
Okay, wait, I get... Okay,
but
so
finish your conversation.
Give me... Yeah, your question is...
It's actually... Sorry, it's funny. Let me just reply to that point. But just remember it. It's funny because I have a friend who goes not to my church but goes to another church, and he says that there are some things he can't tell people in his church, but when he gets to his workplace he tells those people readily
to tell it.
And I was just thinking, wow,
your own
people, you can't tell people who are meant to be your brothers and sisters.
Majority of our listeners will
relate.
Of the world.
People of the world that don't pray for you, they don't believe in the same God as you, they're not thinking about you want to go home, you're freely open to just tell them. But people who are there to edify you, to build you up, to grow, you don't want to tell them. That's why I said that this thing is the second problem, because we have to look at the church. But I'm saying that, okay, let's continue with our scenario.
Okay.
What
is a good reason?
What is a good reason
for not sharing?
Legitimate reason for not sharing.
You know what? Do you want you go?
No. Said you know what? the reason I think it will be a legitimate reason. So I'm going to play devil's advocate, right?
Please. There might be people like that who think like that.
Is two things. Say, for example, in that scenario, is okay. If I say it to my brethren, there might be people in the church that have the mindset of, you have a small injury on your leg, you're going for surgery, can't you pray it out?
That's true. That's true.
Say it again louder so that people at the back can hear it. Just say it louder, say it louder.
Who will say, can't you pray it out? Like, I've seen obscene faith. I won't lie to you. So I will take you to one. I was with my mom one day, Mama, and her vehicle broke down. We parked beside the road. Mommy, it's oil. It's oil. Just let us get oil. And then my mom said, no, I'm not going to get any oil.
I'll
close the bonnet.
I will pray.
And she laid hands on it. I was like, whoa, Mom. I immediately went into the car. I was like, I don't have this thing. But this woman prayed on this thing. Got into the...
And it started.
And she looked at me. And she said, wait. And she looked at me and said, oh, you have little faith. And two things that thing have done to me. Actually, I won't lie to you. Two things that thing have done to me. One is, first, it built my faith. Like, oh, you can tell God anything. Secondly, it makes me question, what is mommy doing? Everything, what is meaning of this? Then later on, I got better understanding. But there might be people in the church. So if you know you're going to share that information and it's going to make some people question their faith level or question why you... So you might have that reservation inside you. And I won't lie to you, I've had that type of situation. There might be people like you in your heart. I've had situations like that where in my heart I'm thinking, if I share this information now, there might be people who will be like, what are you talking about?
But
Like
why should that be an issue?
No,
Yeah.
there are people like that.
Yeah.
I am of that opinion.
Yeah.
I had to grow out of that mindset
Yeah.
of, okay, it's still okay to share. Even this thing that I shared with you, right? So, my mom shared it as a testimony. For me, it was hard to share as a testimony.
Why?
I was like, because I couldn't make sense of it.
Yeah.
As at that point, as at that time, in my level of relationship with God and things I know about God, I was like, what is she talking about? Pour oil in this thing will work. You understand? So that's one aspect. Another thing that there may be a
But do you want to say that there are times when the same situation has happened to your mom and she laid hand on the bonnet and it did not start?
I wouldn't know. That's the only time I've been with that.
There's an answer for that because I'm watching this show called Chosen. I'm not advertising them, but if you can watch it, it's a very good show. Have you guys watched Chosen?
I've watched season 1 of
I know you have been getting me to watch it.
I'm going to turn this way anyway.
I mean, no, I think when it first came out, that's when I watched the first episode.
It's a bit slow, but it actually becomes better. Look, they have this idea, and I think it's very resolute in the Bible that God chooses His miracles at the right time, and it's not just so that somebody can say, "Yes, I've seen a miracle and I'm happy." He does it that He can increase people's faith. It's a testimony for people to believe in God. So that time when it happened for your mom, if you weren't there, perhaps it wouldn't have worked. Because our God is a God of common sense. It's nothing too much for us to just say, let me just go and buy oil and fix this, But the fact that you are there and God knows that, hey, my boy is growing and I really need to build up his faith. Let me show him a testimony of my power. And then that's why God does it, Because if I take what your mom has done to the logical extreme, and I believe what your mom has done, it happens many times. I don't disagree with it. But if you take what your mom has done to the logical extreme, say
and you try to replicate it.
Say I get a hammer and I just break Afolabi's leg like that. And I said, why are you crying? Just go and pray, you'll be fine. And I walk away. Is that what I say?
You know what? One quick one. Pastor Adeboye, he has given a testimony whereby he was driving long distance, traveling, and I think there was no petrol station or something where he was, and it was clearly empty.
Yeah.
And he just had the Holy Spirit for him not to look at the gauge anymore, and he was still driving a long distance, and he ended up driving that long without looking at the gauge anymore. And then when he reached home and parked, the car just died. I've been trying to replicate that.
I think we all heard that.
I've been trying to, especially in this economy. but you might try it, and it doesn't work for you.
Okay, that's faith level. But you're saying, why do people? So first thing is the faith level. You're thinking, if I share this with people, how would people see me?
Wait, sorry.
I
get you.
But
Sorry, dissect it. Yeah. Or do you want to?
Let me come in. I think I 100% agree with what you're saying. A lot of the times that's a barrier that holds us. How would this person
people think about me?
But why do we care so much
but what
think
he
about
said
me?
was that because people don't have faith. Or people don't have the faith. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Or is it that you believe that
share, if I share this information now, like for example, my leg is paining me, I've gone to do surgery. There's two things. You're in a faith-based assembly now.
Yeah.
First, people check faith. Have you not used faith for it? Then there are people who would think logic. Logic is go to the hospital and get it fixed, and which is something you have done.
Yeah.
Then there are people who do logic and faith. You've done the right thing, which is give unto Caesar what is Caesar's, go and fix it in the church, go and fix it in the hospital, then pray about it for quick healing. So there are three categories. And you have to filter through.
So if you pick one, you are thinking sharing it. People
who have shaky faith.
No.
You might be stuck. I've been stuck there before. I won't lie to you. I'm saying real life experience. I've been stuck there before where it took time for me to now say, there are three categories in the 500.
Wait, are you saying that people will lose faith or you will not have faith if you tell people?
There are people in that 500 that will lose faith. I'm
not sure why we should even care about that.
But
I don't know.
Remember Paul said, if there is something you would do,
Yes.
that will make
Cause
the
of
other
other
person
things,
to fall. You shouldn't.
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
so
okay,
this is a big
okay, I
problem
think you
now.
wanna-
This is a big problem.
I'm hitting this thing again. Yeah, walked me up. Go.
This is a
I'm
big
being
problem
serious,
now,
right?
because
I'm being serious.
that's also
so
why.
instead of sharing and letting my brother start doubting and then there's the
Then
problem.
that means our theology is wrong.
Wait.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm aware that
Yeah.
people keep secret in the church.
Yeah.
So that person, I share this information now. There's now doubt in this person's mind, and this person will keep the secret of the doubt, which is he's struggling inside to say, why did Brother Ayo pray about that thing? Why did he seek doctor? Why is it? You know there are people.
So that's
who
wrong. That's wrong
wait
theology.
now, wait
That's
now.
wrong theology.
You know there are people who are sick.
Yeah.
Yes.
They will not take paracetamol. They will say, I will
I know.
pray it out.
I've seen them.
Do you think that's wrong?
What?
You have an headache and you don't take paracetamol. Do you
pray
think
it
it's
out.
wrong?
I do both.
No.
No, but do you think it's wrong? You don't take paracetamol. You have
I
an
won't
headache.
say it's wrong.
Logic
I
and
just
faith.
think no. I don't think it's wrong to say that. No, I'm not going to take paracetamol. It's actually do you even
You
think it's
see
wrong?
what I'm saying?
No, but you know the
It
problem
took
is
me
that
time to understand. But let me draw this to you. It
Yeah.
took me time to understand that even Jesus Christ taught us logic and faith.
Yeah.
He didn't just say faith. He taught us logic and faith. And every character I've seen in the Bible is logic and faith. Logic to the extent that Jesus
Let me
give
put you on the
unto
spot.
Caesar
Does faith works all the time?
Does faith? Yes. There's faith in everything all
yes,
the time.
I agree
Okay.
so.
If faith works all the time,
Yeah.
why are you adding logic to faith?
Why
No, but-
why you need to add logic to faith is because the owner of faith itself said, give unto Caesar what belongs to Caesar.
Yes.
Yeah,
So-
it's
no,
not
but
only
I
in
think
giving
your
that you apply
perception-
that thing.
But
no.
the perception
it's not
is-
only in giving that you apply that thing, you apply that thing in everything.
Yes, but I think your perception maybe is that when we apply faith, there has to be some kind of miracle or some kind of
Yeah.
consequence of that faith.
Yeah.
God will
No, you
not, God
can
will
have
not
faith
give you
and
chair when he
nothing
has
can
given
happen.
you tree. Oh.
Eh?
God will not give you chair when he has given you tree.
It could.
He could, but he
Look,
only.
I think.
Okay,
let me go
but
back.
You
Let
guys
me,
should
let
understand
me,
what I'm trying to say.
look. I think in this topic we have covered so many things.
Yes.
Let me go back to what you're saying. One of the biggest points you mentioned was people don't share. You know, Lide gave a good example, which to me, I don't care if the whole church congregation know that Afolabi his knee is not. It doesn't
don't
matter.
care.
But
You
but
know.
what you share,
No,
what
but
you,
that's what I'm saying.
Okay, wait.
So let's go to the root of the problem.
Yes, please.
Because for me, I feel like this is coming from above. For me, one of the line I've borrowed from leadership experts is that everything rises and falls on leadership. You know, so
Why are you
if you're,
talking
so if you're a pastor,
Wait now,
I'm sorry.
He's a leader
but-
too now.
Wait, hold on. So are you saying that
Wait.
it's coming from pastors? Are you saying it's coming from like parents?
Let me.
Wait,
I
now, I
think.
have something
I think
against
it's
that theory.
coming
Wait.
from the head of the church. If a pastor of a church cannot be vulnerable enough and say and be open enough to the point whereby they also share their struggles, there is no way that a member
will
can
also
feel
know that-
comfortable.
Okay, yeah,
Because
great point,
if
great
it sets the atmosphere
point.
and of that to be like that, what you are saying now won't be an issue.
Yeah.
Okay, because let me tell you, there's a lot of Christians that are having a very hard time, that are struggling,
Yeah.
including pastors. Do you know sometimes pastors are the ones that feel the most isolated,
Yeah.
the most, and it's because of this reason.
Sometimes they take people's burdens.
So, how can I tell this person? How can I tell my congregation
That I'm going to-
that I had headache? You know, and that's why I'm not able to come today. Or my son, who is meant to be the
epitome of the children.
yeah, is coming last in church,
And this-
in school.
So this is why I
So
don't get it.
so we need to go to the root of the problem.
But see, this is why I
Yeah,
don't get it though.
yeah.
Like as a pastor,
You I know
can't-
like this story is, but I'm in a faith. But I'm in a congregation where I should be able to share. Like maybe it's not working like that.
Yeah,
No,
go on like that.
Look, I'll come to your
Yeah.
point. Hopefully I remember. Just to go to your point, I don't understand how you can get to the point of being a pastor and you've not been able to open up. Because I think the idea of being a pastor, or not the idea of being a pastor, but the point of getting to the point where you're being a pastor is that you must have gone through so much adversity. You know, like part of the journey is that people would have prayed for you.
But
you would have opened up the problem.
It's your
And I think-
mindset.
Eh?
It's your
It's your
mindset.
mindset.
Because
Well,
let
how
me
can
tell
you
you
be a
something. Let me
pastor
tell you
and that's your
something. Let me tell you
mindset?
something.
No, but how
Sometimes,
can you be a
yes,
pastor and that be your
no,
mindset?
it can, it can,
it
because
can.
No, but
you are
no, I'm
coming
saying
from
that how can you be a pastor?
can-
I'm
you
not
are
saying
coming
that-
from a
I'm
place
saying
of
that what ought should be,
Yeah.
as opposed to what is actually
Wait,
happening.
let's not
but
even
people,
go into-
people are
let's
coming,
not go
people
to
are
the
coming
point
from
of-
a place of strength.
Yeah.
Are leading from a place
Place
of
of
strength.
strength.
So you cannot show weakness. So if
Yes,
No,
now.
we have a God that tells us that even Paul says, I boast in my weakness. In my weakness, that's where I find strength.
Look at Paul.
How can I be
Paul,
saying
Paul,
that?
In this
you know
world,
what?
in
No.
this, wait, like, wait,
Sorry, let me
let's
know my
be,
volume.
Yeah,
let's
yeah,
be
yeah.
Correct.
factual.
Yeah.
Let's be factual. What he is saying, what the father is saying, is the prevailing truth.
Yes.
You people lead from a place of strength, not a place of weakness. Nobody wants to follow who is leading from a place of weakness.
I don't accept that.
No,
I don't
wait,
agree
no,
that.
wait.
Yeah, yeah.
How be it that I said how be it. However, is if you lead from a place of weakness, it's actually a beautiful thing.
It gives you
Honestly.
an open room.
No, it's
Yes,
you
it's
know,
a beautiful
I always
thing.
talk about this. I think is it a parable in I think it's said in Matthew. I can't remember where specifically.
It takes a level of maturity
Yes,
for the people who
because-
are following you, anyways. If you are leading from a place of weakness,
But
Because
it's for everyone good.
Honestly, I think our pastors and our leaders, they should show us how to become humble, because Jesus said it specifically. Okay, so I was talking about the parable. So two individuals come into the synagogue. One that is I think it was a tax collector, and one that is a what do they call it?
A Pharisee.
Pharisee.
Yeah.
The Pharisee came in boastful, saying that looking up to God, and I can't remember what he exactly said. But he was very boastful.
Yeah. I'm not like this sinner.
Exactly,
Yeah,
And the other person who came in, his eyes were to the ground, he felt so ashamed,
Yeah.
so sinful of himself. He couldn't even look up. He said that this is where I'm looking, because my eyes are not they're not fit enough to look at God's glory, to look up at him, So he humbled himself, and because he humbled himself, God exalted him.
Yeah.
The person who exalted himself humbled him. Our pastors, for them to have reached that stage, they should have reached that stage of I may be your pastor, but I'm your pastor because I've humbled myself before the Lord, and that is where I'm taking you all.
But that's not the
so
reality.
a pastor that doesn't want to share
That's not
anything,
the reality.
Yeah, and that's,
Look.
I don't want to talk about pastors.
Let's say that's probably when a secular people look at the church, one of the first things that comes to their mind is hypocrite.
Yes,
They call us hypocrite.
and it's right. It's right.
It's right. It's right. Because, and this is one of the things this topic is eating, is because we show our strengths,
we don't show this.
we don't show our weaknesses. In church, we have testimony time. What does testimony time indicate?
A time of strength.
Do we have something like challenges time, where people can come and share what is going on?
For 10 minutes and
You know
let us
what?
pray about it.
People
for 5
share
minutes.
challenges, but it's when it's overcome. Maybe when you have done, I was diagnosed with cancer. I prayed. And people in the church be like, even your best friend, really? You were diagnosed with cancer? No wonder when I was calling you that time. So, but the Bible says, we should share our burden, because that way we can, edify each other, we can lift each other. Sometimes there's even a lot of surface relationship. I don't think there is a place, there can't be trust and vulnerability without deep conversations, without if you're on the surface. If you share to me something now, if I share to you something, let's use the example of your knee, my knee. That gives you if I share it to you also, that gives you a reason to follow up on me. No, to go deep, yes. But during the week, why is it that we don't even check on a lot of people during the week? It's because if we call them, if we text, it's just how are you?
Yes.
How is work?
5-10 minutes.
But if I share something like that to you, it gives you the opportunity to call me during the week and say, how's everything? How's that your days?
Do you know something funny?
Yeah.
I would never believe this. I just thought in my mind, I think some of us Christians were virtue signalers. Have you heard of the term virtue signal?
No, we explain.
No, look, I'm not going to do justice to the definition, but it's the idea that where you do good things, or you show people you're doing good things so that people can see you for doing the good thing. Not that you're actually really of the mindset of wanting to do good. The idea where, we're told that if we do a good thing, do it in secret.
Yeah.
But the idea is let me show people that I'm doing good, so
Yeah,
that people
yeah,
can
yeah.
recognize my
Yeah,
goodness.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not even
Yeah.
doing it for
Yeah.
like my own. I don't,
Yeah.
you know. And so I think some of us Christians like or something like that. Like when people say that. What's a good example? That say, but I called this person. It's not that I wanted to actually have a conversation. I just called them just to say that I've called you. I called you, right?
Yeah,
So you
yeah,
can't say I
yeah.
didn't call you.
didn't
That's
call you.
virtue signaling.
Yeah.
Come on, be
Yeah.
authentic, be
Yeah,
genuine.
we will,
So like that's just a side point. But
So we've talked a lot about some of the issues, and we've talked about the environment,
sorry,
the
we
atmosphere.
still have not explained to me why we should care about people having faith. I mean, people losing people. I don't even understand the idea of losing faith because somebody is injured. I don't get it. Somebody explain it to me.
Oh, okay.
Do you
It's
understand?
coming from a place of strength, so it's a theological issue for me, because sometimes church can believe that if you are serving God, if you are coming to church, you are paying your tithe, you are doing all of these things,
So certain
life
things
life
should be good
should
for
be
you.
good, 100%. No, family,
It's
family,
the complete
academic,
opposite of
and
what
they'll say,
what we are meant to be.
they'll say,
But wait.
look at this guy, look
You-
at Laide.
you
He
want
he works in the technical department, he comes to church. See
Look
how
at
God
his
is
life.
blessing him.
Yeah.
So it's a cause and effect kind of thing. So for example, now you now have someone that is doing all of those things, and yet
You
they
know,
are struggling to find a wife, or they are struggling to have their child. We don't understand how
And,
that
and
can
then
be.
somebody has been in the church with that theological mindset that
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you do
Yeah.
all those things,
Yeah.
your life will be good.
Yeah.
Now you are now an example of the person that does all those good things, but your life is now not perfect. It's
Yeah,
not perfect.
yeah.
The
So
person
if you have-
cannot
if you have-
correlate.
yeah, so now if you have a challenge, you want to hide it. You want to portray more of that
Good aspect.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you are struggling. That's why I said in our churches,
No,
A lot-
the thing is,
yeah.
even say you now become vulnerable and you are the perfect person. The person is looking up to like, okay, now I'm going to emulate how Bralaide is doing,
Yeah.
so that my life can be perfect.
Like
all
him.
of a sudden, Bralaide comes out and say, I'm struggling.
everyone's like, hey.
The
what's
person will
wrong?
go, just guess it goes back, like, what? You're struggling?
Yeah.
Then that means the theology the person has believed.
It's
It's
that
faulty.
theology. Yeah.
To be honest, if you are in a church, if anybody's in a, I'm telling anybody,
Yeah,
if you have been in the church for a long time and that's your mentality, then your pastor is not doing a good enough job to tell you that that's the wrong mentality. Like you can't be going to a church for so long and you're of that theological mindset. Like, no, the pastor, there should have been a pastor that's already told you about the idea of having a humble mindset. That it's from our weakness we build strength in. Like, if you've not heard that type of preaching before, I have to question what are you listening to at church. That's my honest opinion.
Well, are there not churches, are there not churches where nowadays we're talking about it a lot, where what they tell you is that prosperity thing?
Yeah. Oh, look, honestly, you know what? That's a different subject.
Yeah.
No. What I'm saying is where they are saying what Afolabi has mentioned, which is if you do all these rights in your life, will be right.
Okay, so
Where that's then I'm
okay, I think I
and
know
I
you're
won't
saying
lie
that
to
you
you.
can't change
I
people
won't.
that
I won't
thinking.
even lie to you. I went to Deeper Life till I was 15, 16, and a 70%
Well,
of
you were
my
born in deeper life.
no, we grew up in Deeper Life, and I won't lie to you. Not until I got to like 16, 17, that's when I really start grasping what WF Kumuyi was preaching deep. At first, I was complete. Now I understand that was babe mentality in Christianity. Anyways, it is do all this right thing, then good things shall follow. Follow peace with all men.
Yeah.
And with holiness, that we do much and see the Lord. So my mentality was just follow peace, do everything for peace, and everything will be fine.
Yeah.
Do everything for righteousness, and everything will be fine.
Yeah.
The idea of a Christian having a problem was alien to me.
Yeah.
But then, after I hit 16, 17, and I sat down, first thing that came to my mind was, I looked around in the church where I was then, I was like, nobody's a millionaire. No, that's the first thing that hit me.
Yeah.
Nobody's a millionaire.
Nobody is in perfect health.
Nobody is in perfect health.
You know,
Nobody,
I told my
nobody
wife something
kids
like this, I'll
is
tell you.
huge. Nobody. Then, what's happening? Is it that the theology is wrong? Is it? I started questioning a lot of things.
Yeah.
And remember at that age for a young man and everything, a lot is happening in my head.
Yeah.
Then I started exploring more. So if you are saying there's somebody out there that is, why are you thinking it is your pastor? It wasn't my pastor. My pastor was preaching, because now I go back on YouTube. I go back on YouTube to listen to W.S. Kumi's message 10 years ago, 3 years ago, 7 years ago. The theology is good. It was my own understanding that was dwarf.
Faulty.
Okay.
Do you understand what I'm saying now?
To be honest, I'm a very direct person, so I get your point. I sometimes struggle. Maybe the way I struggle to fully comprehend that.
Do you think if there's a pastor in Deeper Life that is not feeling well, that is sick, do you think they will be comfortable enough to share it?
Yes. I think because we had House Caring Fellowship, one of the things that House Caring Fellowship does then was, it's a small group where you can now talk about issues. And it helped, like someone like me, the House Caring Fellowship helped a lot. However, I still see House Caring Fellowship. Then my mom still had her own prayer group. So seeing my mom's prayer group at the types, sometimes you're in the living room, they're praying in the room, you could hear some prayer points. So I'm hearing some prayer points. I'm like, those type of prayer points cannot be shared in the House Caring Fellowship. And stuff like that. So that's part of the places I started learning. Oh, there's information management. There's this, there's that. There's 3, there's the 12, there's this, like that. So I started understanding those bits. And then I looked at the church also. Okay, there are certain things I can't share in the church. I can't share largely, but I can share here. And then, there must be somebody. Then another thing, as I grew, not until I got married, that I started learning things about accountability partner. Somebody you can really
that knows all about you.
Like you can really be very vulnerable, offload in front of.
That's the partial function.
Do you have an accountability partner?
That's my wife.
Apart from your wife.
Apart from your wife.
Apart from your wife.
I'm in trouble. If I
Sorry for putting you on spot. But
I'm serious.
No, but I know what you're saying.
I never knew. I never even knew. Like, as you grow in life, you should get to a point where you have somebody that
you can really talk to and pray for you.
And pray. And
this is the gathering of the brethren. You both here. You both keep me accountable. My pastor keeps me accountable. The members of the church that I am one with keep me accountable. But they can't keep me accountable if they don't know what I'm doing.
And that's why we are talking about
this. And that's what we're talking about.
Okay. So you know one thing? I said, look, maybe just stepping back a bit, it seems like there's two things. One, maybe if you grow up with the wrong theology, that makes sense. But I think at the same time, look, I'm all right with people who have grown up with the wrong theology and so they believe they can't say anything. So it's not because they don't want to say anything, but their theology that they've assumed says they can't say anything. I'm talking about people that actually know, like, their theology lends them to the idea that we actually should be sharing and still they don't share. I like to use practical examples because I want to see, let me put you guys on the spot. You put me on the spot, put me on the spot. If you lost your job, would you be able to tell people? The day you lose your job, the next day after you lost your job, will you be able to tell people? Don't even answer why, just say yes or no. Will you tell people?
In the past, I would have struggled, right? But now I think I would be okay to tell people.
Yeah, same thing.
I know you guys, so
same thing.
I don't see you follow.
No, but I could.
Okay. Will you tell him? Let me put you on the spot again. Let me put you on the spot.
I tell you.
Okay, if someone asks, if they ask, you will tell them. But what if they don't ask and you are proactive about it?
There's a point. I've gotten to a point now where, like the one I said, like not coming to church 1, 2, 3 times. Apart from Lida being the leader of the group I belong to in church, like there are times like I can't do that. He doesn't even know what is happening. But you now know certain people that's what I'm saying, like in your information sharing and everything. I know, okay, if I share that with like he understands because he knows certain things about me already. So he can understand, oh, he can't come because of this. Right? And there are some, like, one of the things I won't lie, one of the things I've enjoyed in the church I belong to now is it's a church. Like I would like that. That's what I like it. It's what I've enjoyed. It's a build up, but where I am now, that I like it. I like the way it's structured. Yeah, I like the way it's structured. I like the way I have been able, the way I was integrated into the church. I like it. Now, so like that, then right now I can share. There's a lot of things I can share now.
So what would, let's take it back to Laide.
Okay.
What would make you not to be able to share that? For example, Monday morning, you lost your job. Someone from church called you. And for them to call you, let's say maybe they are not in the top 3, they are not in the top 12, but they just called you. Would you be able to tell them? And if not, why?
Let me give you the truth. I think this is probably one of the bigger ones because I'll tell you the truth. Everybody can hear me.
Yeah.
I wouldn't tell people.
Yeah.
And I don't like the fact that I wouldn't tell people.
Yeah.
If I lost my job today
Yeah.
and somebody asks me, how's everything going? I would not tell them I lost my job. And I want to be open about it.
Yeah.
The reason is fear.
Yeah.
It's fear not of what people, fear of what people might think, but it's also fear of myself. Like, to be seen as somebody or to be, sometimes you perceive that people think this of you, but people don't even care. People are just worried about their life. It's
That's
you
true.
that think that people think.
That's
so
true.
my perception is like, this person has lost his job. Sometimes you'll be like, I don't want people to feel pity for
you.
me.
Yeah.
Other times it's like, oh gosh, it's like you're in a state of like, how do it's just so hard to fathom. Even you're processing the information and you just lost your job.
Yeah.
So then to tell people, it's like rehashing the problem. You yourself, you're just feeling sad, fear, like wow.
Is there an element of shame there?
That is, it's
we have not talked about shame. We've not talked about shame.
So,
I know our time is going.
Yes.
And I think shame is probably one of the biggest things.
Yeah, it is.
One of the big things that
and the thing is that the funny thing, and I think a lot of people are in this position, is that they know that they should be able to open up. Like I said, don't get us wrong. It's not everything that you share with everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
But when we're talking about our brethren in church, don't spread it out to everybody. But at least have a few that you're willing to talk to.
Make sure.
Those are the people that can help you.
Yeah.
I'm not the type of person, because people may think that I'm saying tell the whole world or tell
No,
the whole church.
no.
There are specific people. I'm just saying open up to people in church at least.
Yeah.
And even let me even be honest. If you asked me how's everything, I lost my job. Even you that were closest friends, it take me a while to tell you. Actually.
Part of that might be you might need some time to process it. For me, actually, maybe you've asked that question.
The process.
Okay, yeah.
Even going past the process. See, if you don't tell somebody something immediately because maybe you're still in anguish.
You have a plan.
Yeah.
Or you have a plan of, I could get one in a few weeks' time. So I don't need to share that I lost one. When I've transitioned, then I can say,
that's what testimony is about in our churches. That's what testimony time is about. Nobody will come out and say, I just lost my job. It's after they have gotten the job that they will now come out and say,
okay, so what's responsible?
But is that the definition of testimony then? Because I think testimony is to testify of the thing that God has done in your life. So
God gave you a job.
Yeah, no, but when
you lost the former one.
You lost it.
Yeah.
And you don't want to talk about the reason why you lost it.
But people that fall sick that get well again, is it not the same?
Yeah, but I think if you tell them how you fell sick and then you are now healed, that's the testimony. But if people fall sick and you expect people to tell them as a form of testimony,
no, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay,
what I'm saying is that that's what our testimony is like. That
you don't say
which it is.
You don't say the reason why you lost the job when you are giving the testimony.
Yeah.
That's what he's saying. So you should be able to say, why did you lose the job? What did you do differently now?
Okay.
That made you got another one. And now that you have another one, you are happy that God saw you through that process of that learning curve of you now getting a new one. That's the testimony.
But then what I'm saying is
people even need to.
People don't need to know that detail.
Yeah, people don't need to know the whole details. People just need to know that this is my state of mind.
You lost your job.
For me, I think
they don't need to know how it happened.
For me, I think we might need. I have no problem with testimony time, as long as we can also have somewhere of challenging time.
There's challenging time. There is the prayer box.
That is our problem now.
There's the prayer box.
So I think that's a
what are you guys talking about?
And when you are going to the prayer box, you make sure nobody is looking. You even fold. You fold the paper away. You fold the paper away, and
you don't put your name.
Of course not. or anything that will make you link it back to you. And when you're even going to put it in, you make sure that
there's
nobody.
Well,
secret
but
in
is
the
that,
church.
is that a bad idea?
What we are saying is that
what
what
I-
we are saying is that could we flip that around?
Brown, yeah.
Could testimony be what you write in paper and then you fold and then put it in the testimony box?
And they read
And
it.
then the challenge one is what, maybe not to the extent of going in front of the whole church and saying what your challenge
you're
is.
able to go and
but you're
share it.
able to tell the pastor, you're able to tell your
team
cell group,
leader,
your small group,
group.
so that they can pray for you. Because the truth of the matter is,
And they can
you
check
need,
up and
you
follow
need
up
more help
when you're down.
in your than when you're up.
Yes, that's
But
true.
what we have done now
That's
is
key.
we broadcast when we are up,
And
but when we are down, we silence it. And there is a lot of people
Happening
going to
a lot.
challenges.
Yes. So that's why I think that it's actually a great idea. Like that's a fantastic idea. Why not? Like, because I'm ready to pray for anybody in need.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's not just pray, because I'm somebody who believes that prayer is balanced with practicality.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
actually physically helping somebody.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
that you don't have food, pray, and food will arrive in front of you.
Yeah,
No, I don't
yeah,
believe that.
yeah.
So I'm saying that, like, let's actually say that we go to church and maybe let's help people. Let's help people. So let's add an anonymity factor into it. Anonymous. The pastor is the only one I know, and the pastor will read that this person has this and this issue. Please, let's pray for him. You know, it's not just
There are
even
people
prayer.
that will say, don't even try it. They will tell their pastor,
But
if you...
Wait,
no,
can I
but
ask you a
there's a
question?
prayer time now.
Well, let's ask a question.
There's prayer
Can
time.
we tell? Are we saying that we can't tell Jesus our own problems?
we should...
You
so-
can now. That
some
one
people,
is different.
some people might still
No,
struggle.
like this
so, no,
talking
I
about.
get no. See, I'm building a path of logic. We can tell Jesus.
Yeah.
Then we ask ourselves, can we tell our pastors? Maybe yes. Can we tell the individuals? Probably no. So let's ask ourselves, what is the difference between our pastors and individuals as friends that is stopping us? Because pastors, they even have their own issue. Their burden is the church, the people.
Perception that the pastor is a leader, is more matured and has spiritual understanding of what
That-
you're going
you know what,
through.
that's
There's
what-
that
that's-
perception
that's
there.
what
So
it's- that's-
that office
yeah.
has that authority.
But
And there's the authority there
that's
that
what is killing us, though, because you growing
Well,
up...
Thank
bless
you.
That's you.
You know, I think, this will, we'll talk about this in another episode,
Yeah.
but the older people are like elders or pastors, or for example, like parent and child relationship, at what point did your parents start telling you maybe some of the struggles and challenges that they have? Do they do it now? But then parents expect you to do the same. Okay? Like
so-
to tell them when you are in challenges and struggles. So we can look at the same way with pastors, because I like coming back to pastors, because pastors might find it hard to go down and share some of their challenges.
That's true. Actually, I get
And
that. Yeah.
and they want the members to be able to do that. And
Yeah.
you can't blame that. There's a bit of wisdom there and balance, but I think at the same time, something that you have not taught people how to do, you cannot expect them to do it.
Okay, there's
Yes,
that point. There's that point. I get you.
Yeah. So let's start. Our time has gone. So
Always.
we want to ask one question. You have maybe 1 minute or so. Just if there's a point you have not mentioned, a question you have not answered, or something you want to correct, because I'm sure we're going to watch this episode back and say, why did I say that?
Yes.
But how do we balance the need for privacy with the balance of the biblical call to community and support? How, when you hear this topic, secrets in the church, struggles and challenges in the church, what's coming to you, Olaide?
Okay. Look, one of the things I wanted to bring up, but I didn't get a chance to,
Yeah.
is that I think one of the biggest issues also is trust.
Yeah.
We don't trust each other.
Yeah.
If you don't trust somebody, you can't lean
Sure.
on them.
Yeah.
And I think the problem with us is that, I'm really trying to do this in 1 minute or less. The problem is that while waiting for the other person to show signs of trust before we can trust them. My whole philosophy, even the group that I lead, and I try to make myself a role model, like people know me for that, is that I will be vulnerable to everybody first, so that people can then feel they can be vulnerable to me. And I'm willing to be hurt
Yeah.
and suffer the consequence of somebody betraying me.
Yeah.
for being vulnerable than waiting for the next person to be vulnerable to me before I can trust them. Because if we're all of that mindset, we're never going to reveal each other. So, and a lot of the good relationships I've built with people is because they've been able to, I've been vulnerable,
Trust you.
vulnerable to me, and they said that, brother, like,
and as a leader, you have to go first.
yes.
Like
That's how
you
you
have
lead.
to go first.
That's how you lead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, sorry, let me just wrap it up because I know you asked, how do we balance this? Again, I'm going to say it's because, YouTube comments, they can take it out of line. I don't believe that we should go and tell everybody everything about your life.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't believe that we should hide everything from everybody.
Yeah.
I believe that find certain people within the church that you trust and build relationship with them and be vulnerable with them. And as you are building that, look for more. Because people are just waiting for somebody to be vulnerable with them so that they can be vulnerable. And the type of information, what do you tell them? You don't need to go into detail. Just let them know that, look, I'm facing this issue. Can you pray for me? I trust you and I'm going to tell you the truth so that in the future you know you can trust me and you can tell me the truth. So that's the general gist of it.
Mine is more around, first, know that you can share with people. Don't have that debacle that, oh, I cannot share. Push yourself to share. Now, like what we said, know who to share with. And if they burnt you in the past, because this is the part I wanted to talk about is, for people who have shared in the past, they've been betrayed, and they're now struggling to share. Please, the solution is in sharing. There's an adage that says, once you share a problem, is half solved, right? Share, so that you can at least get half solved. Share. Then, when you share with the wrong person, that person may not, just know that maybe that person is not yet at the maturity stage or does not have the capacity to handle the problem you have shared with. If you share with the right person, they will give you the right perspective. The other thing I want to say is share with somebody that will take you through the right channel, which is the word of God as a light unto your feet. If you're going to share, there's therapy, there's faith, there's everything. There's a place for everything. There's a place for everything. So I'm not the point that say, oh, only share in the church. Don't go for therapy. Don't see counselor. No, there's a place for everything in all, because all brings their own different ingredients into this soup that will make it sweet.
Okay, you are giving us another episode idea. Should we go to therapists as Christians?
I wanted to touch. You said we can talk about anything.
No,
I like
but,
that. So there's a place for all.
There's a place for all.
There's a place for all.
Let's find that one.
We'll be good.
See, they are stealing the idea.
So as we finish off, I think for me, this is an important topic. Like every topic we talk on this podcast. But, I think without sharing, there is no trust built. There's no vulnerability. Imagine if I call you and then every day all we talk about is the weather. If I ask you about work, you're like, work is good. We thank God, we cannot grow. And when we look at Jesus, when he came here on earth, if Jesus if he was not open enough, what we read in the Bible today, but I think when you look at the life of Jesus, when he was sharing, he was also sharing with discernment. Sometimes what withheld Jesus from sharing with the 500, with the 12, is not because he's trying to hide something or he doesn't want them to know, it's because of their understanding is limited. Okay? That's so one of the questions you ask is, why should we not tell? But we are not Jesus, even though we can be like Jesus. We can go in that discernment. But I think part of what makes sharing difficult is shame. Wrong theology. We've talked about that today. If you're in an atmosphere whereby how you look is the most important thing. It's not about how you feel. No matter how you feel, you always look good, and that's a problem. So again, when we look at the gospel, there's places where Jesus himself was vulnerable. There's places where the Bible said Jesus slept. There's places where he cried. There's places where he shared deep things with his disciples before he died. All of those things. So we need to emulate that. And as a leader, I like the last thing Olaide mentioned, that as the leader of his own department, he tried to lead by example, and that will make it easy. You see that the more you share your challenges, the more people will come to you
With
to
their
share.
own,
You know, and
I've not perfected it.
of course,
I've
of
not
course,
perfected it.
we're all
I'm
work in
growing.
progress.
We're all work in
We're all
progress.
work in
Yes.
progress. But you know, let us know what you guys think. You know, should have we done justice to this topic?
Yeah. Is there anything else that you think that, like,
that
maybe
we
we've
can?
missed about
Yeah.
why people don't share things?
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
So
Like maybe we've missed it and we can rehash it at another time.
Yeah.
definitely, and we'll be reading through your comments and your emails, whatever you send to us. Let's keep this conversation going. I'm sure there's still a lot more to say about this
I'm
topic.
sure we've missed some things.
but yeah, thank you for joining us. And we wish you to join us for the rest of the other episodes in this season.